I'm going to assume this is going out because there's a massive lag in what I'm seeing on my monitor, but I guess that's par for the course. My name is Rob Bryanton, author of Imagining the 10th Dimension. And so we're trying a little bit of live, hopefully better quality than the last episode that we tried. But the reason I set things up this way anyway is because of our spooky clock. And if you've been reading my blog, you know about the connection that they talk about in Interstellar, where somebody is able to use extra dimensional gravity as the only force that exerts itself across the extra dimensions to push a book off of a shelf or to make a clock work differently. We've had this spooky clock, which broke about 20 years ago and stopped working for many years until Christmas about 4 years ago, when my wife's cousin, whose grandparents used to own this clock, came for a visit. And while he was here, we were in a different room in the house, and this clock started up, bong, bong, all by itself. And nobody had heard it ring for at least 10 years. So it was so weird to have it start up all by itself like that. It went for about 5 hours and then stopped and it was quiet again until the following Christmas, when again Ray came to stay with us for Christmas, and the clock started up while he was here again. And once again, the floor that we're on right now, the room that I'm in actually used to be the garage in this house, and the previous owners converted it into this nice big family room that I'm in. And so the floor is not going to be shaky. There's nothing that's going to be translating vibrations up unless something really massive was pushing on it, or in the case of a scientifically approved theory, Kip Thorne, as the Nobel winning physicist who was in charge of the science to make sure it was done correctly on the movie Interstellar. He's the one who approved that idea of extra dimensional gravity. So here we have a pendulum clock that is being started up by seemingly by itself. And coincidentally, only when one person is coming into the building, because that person only has been there once per year. So far, we're batting completely 1,000 on this. So the following Christmas, he didn't come, and the clock didn't make a sound. And the following Christmas after that, he didn't come, and the clock was also silent. But then that takes us to just this Easter 2019, when we had a family gathering here in the house. And looks like this is probably going to be the last family gathering we have in this house because we're selling it. So once again, the clock started up while we were here. And in this case, my son, who's a doctor in nuclear medicine, happened to be staying with us as well. And so he's, naturally going to be quite the skeptic when it comes to these sorts of things. But it really just was kind of hard to believe that there was all these seeming family connections of some kind that were happening that were seeming to make the clock want to go or not go. So finally, the clock did go one more time, and that time I did manage to make a little movie of it. And so it's been silent again since then. And now, when I decided to make a movie about it, it's decided to start up. So after 4 years of proving that it only wants to start when it wants to start, and that's the only time that it is going to start, I'd have to say the clock is here saying hello, and whoever is using the forces of extra dimensional gravity to be able to exert this influence on the clock, then we'll have to say hello to them. And I have no idea, exactly what or who this could be. I'm not a psychic, and I don't see the emanations or those sorts of things. But definitely there's something that's pretty weird about this clock, because the last time that it started up was when Ray, just before Mother's Day, came back one more time. And an hour before he got here, the clock started up once again. At that time, it went for about a day and a half, and until about a half a day before Ray was leaving again. And when it finally stopped, we decided to take a look and see what was going on. And so I don't know. I just it never had occurred to me to take the back off the clock and see, like the clock was mostly in the year not running at all, and then it was running. I wasn't expecting to see anything in there. It was just going to be a clock inside. So I'm looking straight on into the back, and Ray is up here looking down, and there's no pendulum. So the pendulum is actually lying over on the floor of the clock down here, and there's no possible way for it to actually be attached to the rod that it's supposed to be attached to, because the rod has come loose from the mooring that held it up near the top of the clock. There was some kind of a holder there, and that one a little further down, and it slipped out of that one as well, and it was just hanging on by the third one. And that was all you had, was this, it's like a thin vein almost, the pendulum wire that it was suspended from. So that's all that has been ticking back and forth in these last 4.5 years, that the clock has been making these noises, and managing to actually go for, in the last marathon session, a day and a half. Now, thinking about that in terms of poltergeist activities, of course, there's got to be things that everybody's going to be able to, who has a good ghost story, is going to be able to say, well, clearly extra dimensional gravity is a way to explain what I experienced there. And, I think that's kind of cool if that's really the case. But again, every person who has not had a ghost experience that I know is still a skeptic. And it's not till something that really does seem like, boy, that's just one too many things to really just be coincidences by now. That's where somebody makes the transition to saying, I think there is something extra going on there. So with the clock, when it was running, it was running about 25 minutes. Would be when it would gong, and instead of every 30 minutes, the half hour and the chiming on the hour. So somehow this little vein was not providing it with a slow enough momentum to make it go exactly the right speed. But the fact that it was going that speed at all is still pretty amazing. So I'm definitely interested in seeing what we can do here now. If we're going to just continue to film this clock, will it continue to run as long as we're putting a camera at it? It's an interesting idea. So let's just leave it to run here for a little while. And I want to just see now if I can read through what's been happening in the live chat. I'm here. TikTok. What's the story on the clock? Oh yes, the story on the clock. If you go to my blog, Imagining the 10th Dimension, the .com/blog, that's where you can be able to look at something around the Interstellar. I published a number of blogs back when that movie came out, but at that time I wasn't producing videos, so there was definitely some really interesting connections between what I've been saying since 2006 and what Kip Thorne said in that movie as science advisor and executive producer. And I would highly recommend you read his book, The Science of Interstellar, because it does give us lots of indications of how the things I've been talking about all along, like the fifth dimension being our probability space, and the place where those different possibilities exist simultaneously, which of course is part of Everett's many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. To say that somebody who's at the top of their game in the physics world is also supporting those ideas now is really thrilling for me. So yeah, do read that blog entry. The device I ended up on here doesn't have my log on it, and I I can't remember what my current password is, so I'm just going to be reading here. It's a spook, yes. Those are some kawaii dogs. Those are my grand puppies, Fonzie and Potsy, and Gus is the oldest one, who was an adopted dog, and so love them all dearly. But, they can't be here while we're trying to sell the house. Got to keep everything clean and tidy. Time is a spook. Say no to time. Time is an illusion, of course, and the difference between past, present, and the future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion, as they say. And Mr. Einstein said, waiting for Rob to show, yes, I'm here. I was thinking, why are we watching this? What if when we die, our 4D self is still alive?
All right.
Well, we're talking about the connection with this clock and the fact that it was owned by the person's grandparents, and it's only when that person was here for many of the times that it did start up, that's when it was connecting. So yeah, I don't know, would seem like as good an argument as any that there could be some connection that was happening there. If we're talking evidence-based science, then we've got a fairly high correlation here between that guy's in the room. Oh, the clock started. So what more can we say about that? I may have to leave before the show starts, but I want you to leave you all with this. And that why ghosts are, yes. Your theory is correct. Watch Steins Gate. I've seen little clips of Steins Gate, and yeah, definitely there's a lot of anime ideas that are trying to convey these sorts of ideas, but that's because these ideas connect to ancient wisdom and spirituality and Eastern mysticism and the things that people experience when they're on psychedelics. And I say that having never had a psychedelic myself, I've never tried any of that stuff, but definitely the connections between this way of visualizing where the 10 dimensions come from and fit together ties nicely to what people who are into serious psychedelics research are saying. Also gives you an explanation for what those kinds of visuals are when you're under the influence of DMT or ayahuasca or psilocybin mushrooms. Those kinds of visualizations that allow you to see something that's beyond our reality. Of course, Graham Hancock in his book Supernatural was talking about how we connect to visuals and the experiences that people have had through thousands of years, through shamans and ancient meditation practices and ritualistic sensory deprivation and chanting and rhythmic motion and all these different ways that people can get into altered states sometimes allows them to be able to see things that they weren't otherwise able to see. And so again, if you're thinking of every additional dimension as being orthogonal to the ones before, then it's easy to think how right now, no matter which way I'm facing in this room, that's forward time, that's backwards time. And it just happens to be because it's always an additional 90 degrees off from everything else. Those two follow what my point of view is. And that's the thing that is really important to consider. Talk about 10 spatial dimensions is if our universe and our physical reality is involved in the conversation, then there's always this floor that we're tied to in the third dimension. And you can't release your atoms and molecules from that membrane or brain, as they call it. So with that in mind, then it influences the way that we experience the additional dimensions. And the fourth dimension, we can only experience as one forward, backward in time that is always happening in front of us and behind us. But that's because it's tied to our conscious awareness. And all those things that people are saying now about the connection between the quantum observer and the quantum reality that you are experiencing, some of that stuff is definitely very connected to the ideas that we've been talking about here as well. And so, Tai Chi, the Kabbalah, and there's so many other things that really, it's the implications are fascinating to all this. The clock must be quantum entangled. That's exactly right. If this is not spooky action at a distance, I don't know what is. So that's a good one. Yeah, I'll have to put that one on the t-shirt. Other than me, all there's tens of thousands of people who know, but why? Possible more. Where? Definitely not on Reddit. Wrong. Or oh yeah, Salvia divinorum. Yes, another one that um, I hear is gives you a very geometric experience of space time and possibility, and uh, but can be quite intense from what I hear. It's not definitely not on the list of ones I would ever try, but as somebody who's going to be turning 65 in August, by now I'm kind of thinking I should just stay in the control group and keep keep everybody else in line for whether what we're talking about is a hallucination, results of the systematic derangement of the senses and deliberately causing the malfunctioning of the mind, or whether we really are talking about things that are outside of our reality. For example, what? Please explain. The dog in the third photo just blinked. that's that's kind of a running gag too with some of my videos. People will claim that I never blink. I always respond to say, "That's because I only blink when you blink," and that'll get somebody's mind going when they start thinking about that one. This is getting intense. Everyone on Reddit banned me for common sense. Do you think when we die we become higher dimensional beings? That we go back to symmetry and then break it again. So that's what Kevin Gillibrand and everythingforever.com will tell you. I think we already are. I think lower dimensional beings. Yeah. Uh, the subreddit for Salvia divinorum users. That plant lets you perceive about 6 dimensions face to face. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what happens with everything being orthogonal to itself. It You get into those self-refractive ideas. 2D is the way to be, dog. Yeah. Yeah, let's get small. Mike, right? People are kind of dumb. Whoa, did everyone feel that? CERN just destroyed Earth and we all jumped to a parallel universe. Yes, the Mandela effect. I have enough trouble with one dimension. Salvia really got me into this guy's ideas. Yeah, that's interesting. Like we've got people that are very serious psychedelics researchers that are supporting this project and talking about how the book that it was all based upon is one of the most mind expanding books they've ever read. So it's been really fun having people discover this stuff again. But we're still, this is kind of a Gnostic thing, the Gnosis, the Gnosis. This is stuff that people have known for time immemorial. And that's why it connects to things like the Kabbalah, which, is still more about the way that we as physical beings are experiencing the quantum wave function. And, physicists will tell us that all we really are is a spreading wave of a quantum wave function. And that's how Everett's many worlds interpretation works too. We're part of a spreading wave function, and the one state that we happen to be observing right now is just as real as the ones that we aren't observing right now. So it's a fascinating scientific theory, and the fact that you're seeing so many multiverse movies and TV shows now might lead one to believe, like physics likes to say, that all these extra dimensional theories are just fantasy. And it's important to understand that there is serious science that leads us to think that there should be these extra dimensions. Okay, there was a gong. Just drop some books on the floor. That's what that big bang was. Huh. Let's see. Lost my place here. We're all described in the codex of the 10th dimension. Every archetype that could describe our possible lives, yeah. Um, and really, that's the way of thinking about Max Tegmark's ultimate ensemble as well. If every possible arrangement of information is contained in something that is outside everything else, you know, in the sense of Gödel's incompleteness theorem, then that's what is out there. And are using 10 steps the only way to get to the out there? Really, no. I mean, there could be any number of ways that you can divide that up. The most important one is there's the you and there's the everything else, right? So after that, how many other ways you want to divide things up is up to you. But you're starting from the infinitesimally small and getting to the infinitely large, the everything, you know, anybody who's got a TOE theory of everything, if it doesn't really get, you know, if you can't by the time you got into to that say, okay, but what about this? Well, that has to have been in there, or you hadn't really gotten to everything. So yeah, please everybody go to everythingforever.com. That's a great place for you to see those ideas explored brilliantly by my friend Gavin Gerbrand, who unfortunately took his own life a number of years ago now. And but all those ideas are still up there, and the idea that there is a part of what you are observing right now that becomes part of Max Tegmark's ultimate ensemble, becomes part of this everything that we're talking about here. That's exactly you know, the important thing to keep in mind. Okay, you guys think entanglement is affected by relativity? Yeah, that's a good one. I don't have a fast answer for that. Even a broken clock is right twice a day, and this one now would not stay right because it only gongs every 25 minutes instead of every 30 minutes. You meaning we are each our own God in our own 10D bubble? Yeah, if you can call being in the messy middle, as Neil Tirok likes to call it, then that's exactly what every observer and every living thing is at their own center of the universe, and their own center of the space-time bubble that you can see when you're envisioning that ball of space-time, the red line, and the patterns all around it. That's another way of thinking about the 4D bubble that represents our space-time horizon. And then, of course, if we really are talking about what's beyond that, then that's still part of the fourth dimension and the third dimension, but it's still all tied to that third dimensional floor, no matter how many dimensions you're going up. Let's see here. However, you could be in an infinite library and not be omniscient because you can't read then. Haha. Yes, well, there's lots of those conundrums, all right. But I think, you know, anytime that you're talking about turtles all the way down, if that's the way you like to think about it, rather than say there are only 10 steps or there are only 7 steps or 26 steps, you know, that was another popular way of dividing things up in string theory back years ago. So there are lots of ways to do this. It doesn't have to be just the one way. But definitely there are good arguments for 10, and that's not because people have 10 fingers, it's because just of how the things work out as you're working through the logic of what's outside of that, what's outside of that. Doing it up to 10 is a nice logical structure that does make sense to say. If that's where we got to everything, then there's steps before that. But ultimately, it's always about the very specific and how it fits in within the very general. Maybe gods are just ideas of intelligence in that dimension that broke free of their boundaries. Yeah, yeah. The Boltzmann brain theory, the idea that there could be just consciousnesses floating around within parts of the landscape multiverse or the other parts of our own space-time universe, out at the extensions of it where things aren't organized properly to be able to have living creatures anymore. There could still be awarenesses. That's definitely a good scientific theory as well. Was waiting for some elaborate jump scare like that. But I dropped the books there. That was pretty scary. I have no idea how loud that ended up being. Figured out how to interact with the dimension properly. Yeah, God is just an English word, lol. The word God has been filled with bad info. Yeah. It's like the vampires who come to the door with the pamphlets and say, would you like to donate to the pamphlet or to the Vampire Society? And the one that says vampires, what's going on here? You guys don't just come to the door now, do you? And the vampire says, yes, there are many hurtful stereotypes. May we come in? And that's the joke. We exist in higher dimensions as microbes, encased in 4D cells, part of a larger universal body that only exists as part of a subset of other universal bodies within the codex of the 10th dimension. And to that I would add, and we are all just the universe observing itself. That's what John Wheeler said, one physics giants in the 20th century. He drew a giant U with an eyeball and a tail, and it's just, right now, the universe is observing itself. That's the best way to describe what's happening here. Is the quantum function is being observed. There is something that is you, but there's something that is me, and we are each observing our own unique version of the universe that is tied to our 3D cells and atoms and molecules, and has those physical connections, but also has many other connections, including important ones that Richard Dawkins used to call the river out of Eden. The idea that there's this genetic strand stretching from now back to the beginning of life for each of us. Kind of brings to mind what was the Stephen King novel that had the string that was coming out of the top of people's heads, or the other the movie that had the giant rabbit and the lines coming out. All of that stuff is connected to the same ideas. Yeah, he gets it. Just wants to know how to connect people. I've tried. Your life is a cell in your soul, basically, pretty much, thousands of times. What is God other than something which has perfect control and knowledge of a universe? Aliens are extra dimensional and show this by crop circles. Crop circles, another mystery for the ages. Crop circles, another wonder to behold. Crop circles, history writes its pages. Now a wondrous story can be told. My song Crop Circles, that's posted here somewhere too. Hey, anything less is just another powerful entity. Nice camera adjustment, piano time. You back? Well, like Kev Tim said, we're actually in a 5th dimension, but we are tricked to think we're in the 3rd. Hi, Rob. Ooh, say something to prove you are real. Piano is Jesus made. Huh. I knew I stayed for a reason. We're not tricked really. Oh. Okay, so I'm not, that's all I'm seeing here. Do I have to, let's just try refreshing this. Sorry. Clock's still going. So we might hear a bong again. Now somebody's keeping track here. See if it's still about every 25 minutes or if it's going a different speed. That would be another interaction in the exploration. But the fact that this clock is able to run by with no pendulum, endlessly fascinating. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Okay, I think something's crashed. So here's a book series. This is something that incorporates ideas from Imagining the 10th Dimension, and the author is clearly able to write a large amount of material in short order. So this has only been coming out for about a year or so now, year and a half, maybe. No, yeah, about a year. So Eddie Patton, I think is how he said to say it. Hi, Eddie. So this book is, a multi-dimensional adventure, and so he talks about my project here in the end. This is an appendix where he talks about the different ideas that are in his book, and the fiction he's writing. This is a horror, science fiction, fantasy novel. Nobody's saying this is pure science, but there's still logic that has to be used in the storytelling, unless you're really just going to make a bunch of stuff up for no reason. So he says in the heading, Quantum Physics and Dimension Theory. There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet about higher dimensions and the many worlds theory and string theory, etc. Ultimately, I found a really interesting interpretation model out there that made a lot of sense and worked well as a foundation for my higher dimensional theory in these books. My concept of higher dimensional travel for this book series is based largely on the Imagining the 10th Dimension interpretation by Rob Bryanton. He has many great old videos about his 10-dimension model on YouTube, and I share them. I share them on my Facebook author page from time to time. We start with a point. Special thanks to Rob Bryanton. Here in Book 1, Jason doesn't get too much into higher dimension theory and interdimensional time travel other than by accident, but you, the reader, will see a lot more of that in the coming books. And so the end of each book, he gives a little shout out to me, and I'm very appreciative of that. There's been a number of other authors that have contacted me over the years about using the ideas from Imagining the 10th Dimension in their writing. And it's always nice when somebody's giving you an acknowledgement of how you help them to get thinking about these things. For me, the thing that got me thinking about this stuff was back when I was 8 years old, I read a children's novel called A Wrinkle in Time, which of course became a movie last year. But honestly, I didn't get the magic of the book when I watched the movie. I didn't think they quite captured that wonderful moment when you first see that space-time is something that can be bent and folded, and that ties into relativity and the gravity and all those kinds of things in really interesting ways. So that's about it. I'm going to have to go do some other stuff now. So nice chatting with you all, and we'll do this again.